Welcome everybody to our Wednesday Professional Development Series webinars by Mercer University's Stetson-Hatcher School of Business. We're glad you could be joining us. Today is something that I've been talking about for a long time. I've had the opportunity to work with both Dr. Kushins and Dr. Quispe-Agnoli for quite a while now, and we've talked about putting this program together. Today you're going to be able to see and learn quite a bit about one of the introductory programs behind Lean Six Sigma, today's Yellow Belt. My name is Jeff Wolf. I'm the director of the Center for Executive Education, and I welcome all of you today. Dr. Myriam Quispe-Agnoli is our Associate Professor of Economics at Mercer University, and Dr. Eric Kushins is an Assistant Professor of Management at Berry College. They're going to talk to you today, and it really is just an introduction to Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt. There's going to be an opportunity to discuss further later on today what we have in store for you, for those of you who want to go into a full program about Yellow Belt. I want to give you a couple of quick updates here today. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A section. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in there. We're going to wait till the end of the session until we get to those questions, but we will try to answer as many as possible. And during this time, you're going to get some inside information on what it is to work with Yellow Belt experience. So today, what I want to do is I want to have each of them introduce themselves, and then they'll go right into their presentation. So Myriam, why don't you start things off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then Eric, you can follow up. And then from there, we'll start the program. I will come back on later on, and we will kick it off now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. My name is Myriam Quispe-Agnoli. As Jeff mentioned, I have been working as a faculty member of economics at Mercer University for the last 5, almost 6 years now. I am teaching in the MBA program as well as the undergraduate programs and also in the business analytics program. Eric?
My name is Eric Kushins, and as mentioned, I'm an assistant professor of management at Berry College. I worked at Mercer University for, I think about 5 years, both in Macon and Atlanta, and moved over to Berry about 2 years ago. And in management, teach principles, HR, and entrepreneurship, etc. You'll also see by my name all those various letters. The CSSB stands for Certified Six Sigma Black Belt. I received my certification from the American Society for Quality, and the programs that Myriam and I have put on in the past, we've taken as our primary focus the content and philosophies from the American Society for Quality to put together our different yellow, green, and black belt programs. And as mentioned, obviously today we'll be talking a little bit about Yellow Belt. To start off, we're going to identify what Lean and Six Sigma are, so you have an understanding of what those terms are about. I'll do a super brief 30-second history of Lean Six Sigma. We'll discuss the methodology, talk about the importance of the philosophy of Lean Six Sigma and it being a team-oriented and leadership-oriented approach to management. And then we'll spend the second half of today's presentation going through 2 examples. One sort of a personal or home-based example of how Lean Six Sigma could really influence positively, your household, and the second one, a great business example. Both of these examples are taken from participants we've had in prior certification courses that we've held. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Eric, for the introduction. Let's start. What is Lean?
All right, so when we think about lean, it's important that we recognize that lean does not stand for less employees are needed. This is a common joke that people tend to believe that lean is about trimming people. It is not. It is about waste reduction in a process. Generally, when we talk about reducing waste, we're talking about eliminating non-value added aspects. And so In Lean Six Sigma, we generally talk about 8 types of waste. Those include things like defects, overproduction, waiting, transportation, excess inventory, excess motion, excess processing, and underutilization of talent or skills. And so one of the main goals of Lean is to reduce all these sorts of excesses or waste. When taking a Lean approach to process improvement, the general focus is on qualitative tools. One of the reasons that most Lean Six Sigma activities begin with Lean and begin with qualitative tools is often because they are a little more intuitive. They're a little more, they're easier often to understand and often easier to implement, and easy to implement with teams of people. And because of this approach, oftentimes when we apply Lean tools to any process improvement, we wind up with some great quick wins. And ideally with any Lean Six Sigma program that you're initiating, you really are looking to tackle a small project. You're looking to solve that problem quickly and to control and make sure that that improved process continues to stay the course throughout. And so that's really the focus of Lean. When a problem remains after trying to implement a Lean approach, more technical Six Sigma tools are used. And Myriam, I think, is going to go into that in the next slide.
Okay, Six Sigma. Six Sigma comes actually from number 6 and the letter sigma. The sigma is the letter in the Greek alphabet. And actually, sigma is for standard deviation. And please, don't worry, I'm not talking about math here, but we are talking about variation. As Eric was mentioning, what we are trying to do is to reduce waste, to reduce errors, to reduce variation in the quality of the programs, in the product, in the provision of the service. Then that is what, and how are we going to reach to that project that will help us or will help you to reduce variation in the quality of your product, in the provision of your service, is by gathering information. You collect information, you identify the problem, you gather information, you analyze it, and then you make a decision using that information. Then that is the idea behind Six Sigma. Lean leads to kind of a managerial approach. Six Sigma deals more with the technical, the use of information to make decisions. Both of them together is going to bring us the best of the best, right? And it's going to give us, Six Sigma is giving us a measure of quality, right? And it's going to help us to make decisions in order to implement a business initiative that is going to give us quick wins, good results.
Right, and so next slide. Putting these two ideas together, Lean, again, focusing on waste reduction, plus Six Sigma, focusing on reducing process variation as well as preventing defects through problem solving, together gives us Lean Six Sigma. And it has, in the past, each of these sort of mindsets or traditions had been distinct and separate, the way that different organizations had applied them. But today, oftentimes they are taught and used and thought of together. It is important sort of to recognize sort of the very brief history, as I mentioned, of Lean and Six Sigma. We do know that Lean and Six Sigma both sort of originated out of manufacturing, a lot of it from manufacturing of cars. But we know today that it's used in the public sector, it's used in customer service, it's used in healthcare, it's applied and used everywhere. Oftentimes, Lean Six Sigma is traced back to Henry Ford in 1908 with interchangeable parts and flow production using sequences. In the 1930s, Edward Deming developed the idea of sort of continuous improvement and the DMAIC methodology, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Also in the 1930s, Walter Sheward introduced the idea of control charts, which is something that we learn about in a green belt or black belt program, which really helps us understand different types of variation in a process. In the 50s, Edward Deming brought the ideas he developed to Japan and specifically to Toyota, where it became very popular. In the 60s, Toyota developed a management system explicitly based on a variety of lean principles. Back in the US in the 1980s, Motorola really sort of identified the significance and developed a methodology around Six Sigma itself. And Motorola still holds the copyright for that term today. And in the 1990s, perhaps people are most familiar, at least in the US, with Jack Welch of General Electric, employing Lean Six Sigma as a total approach to business in his organization. And that's the very rough history, but that's really what brings us, to today. Again, healthcare has been one of the biggest places where Lean Six Sigma has taken a really, become impactful, as well as in customer service and government sectors as well. But the examples we give are applicable to a variety of different industries. So here we see in front of us the DMAIC methodology. This stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And the DMAIC framework really establishes a way for us to understand what process we're involved in, what are the main tools we need to measure what it is we're looking at, how we should then go about analyzing the data that we've collected, what is a way in which we could develop an experiment or any sort of improvement in that process. If we find that improvement to be successful, we then look to control it. And Myriam, if you could hit for the next slide, some of the tools that we use in each of these steps. In define, we use Project Charter, something that many of you probably use when you're engaging in any project management approach. All sorts of stakeholders need to be recognized in any of these approaches. And this is going to be critical, especially because we need to identify, are we trying to make something better for our end user? Is it for our client? Is it for our current employees? Obviously, this is critical not only to any project that you're engaged in, but specifically anything related to a Lean Six Sigma initiative. Measurements are done in a variety of different ways. We'll talk about Gemba walks, collecting qualitative data, as well as collecting time data. Those are used to create process flow maps and value stream maps. These different 8 types of waste, again, as mentioned, we're trying to, in the lean approach, trying to eliminate different types of waste. We need to identify where that is in the process. And then we move on to how are we going to make the improvements, how are we going to measure those improvements, and then eventually how we can continuously collect data and put this data into control charts to determine if we're actually continuing to improve the process, or if we see that data is going outside of our boundaries, do we need to actually go and for further improvements to make sure that we are having efficient and effective processes.
Exactly, and just simply want to iterate and emphasize the fact that we are using managerial tools with statistical tools, as you can see, in order to bring them all together, communicate, analyze the problem, communicate, solutions in an effective way, and set up an improvement, a project that, we can see what the results are going to be and check it out later on in order to see under control if it is giving us the benefits that we were expecting. If it is not, then we revise again. It's not a one-way process. It comes back all the time, reviewing what we are doing and the information.
And another way for us to sort of understand this DMAIC process is through this simple idea of see, solve, and share. So C is about defining and measuring, identifying problems, setting goals, understanding what's happening, determining the current causes. Solving, conceptualize a future state. So in the seeing, we look to recognize and understand our current state, what is currently going on, and then we need to say, what do we want the future to look like? What do we want this process to actually be? Where do we want things to be more efficient? Who are our stakeholders, and how do we try to meet our stakeholders' needs? Solving, we're using the analyze and improve steps, and in sharing, follow-up, lessons learned, we're focused on the control phase. And so again, the DMAIC process or the see, solve, share, both are ways for us to think about what we're engaged in when we're talking about Lean Six Sigma strategies.
Okay, Eric, tell us, what are we looking at here?
Absolutely. So one of the things often, and I'm sure none of you brilliant managers and MBAs are, wind up doing this, but oftentimes we have ideas of what we think is going to be a great process or a great improvement for any activity, any process, or any procedure that we're responsible for. What winds up happening, of course, is that the things that we have in our heads, our beliefs about how people are going to engage in any process, don't always live up to reality. And so what we see here is the design, which on the right side, you see this beautiful sidewalk, trees, benches, and obviously the purpose of the sidewalk is for people to get to point A to point B. But the user experience, and again, the idea of user experience is something that really comes out specifically of software or human-computer interactions. People might be familiar with the term UX, of course. The user experience is quite different from the design, right? The user also wants to get from point A to point B, but really they just want to get there as quickly as possible. And the best way to do this is to just cross the path, right? And so, again, we identify the importance in the define phase of DMAIC of identifying your stakeholders. Now you need to identify them, but you need to also engage them. Right? We need to understand how they're currently using the process, especially with our employees, or we need to speak with our customers about what they find value about the product or service that we're providing for them, and use their insights and their input on a continuous basis to understand what improvements we actually have to make. But again, oftentimes this is what happens in organizations. The user experience is quite different. And then what we see on the next slide is basically management coming in and saying, you're using this wrong. Okay. Yeah, you might get value from it or whatever, but you don't really know what you're doing. Okay. Again, very inefficient, right?
Yeah, I guess that the managers or the people that were doing the project were not listening to actually the people that were going to walk around, correct?
Yes, and they most likely didn't even talk to anyone about this. And obviously, you can imagine that the people who designed this were like, you're not doing what my design says. And so therefore, I'm going to stick a sign in and communicate what you're supposed to do. We know that anytime, in an organization, we get a memo about how we're supposed to do something differently. Again, we've done a lot of work with hospitals, memos come to nurses about how they need to do something differently, but this is not actually what they are able to do in practice. And so, this is something that is very common here, obviously humorous, but in situations like manufacturing, like healthcare, where things can be quite dangerous, or we have someone's health or life on our lines, we need to make sure that not only are we understanding who the stakeholders are, but we're engaging them on a continuous basis. And this is a critical and vital aspect to understanding what Lean Six Sigma is. And again, Lean Six Sigma is not a bunch of tools, okay? It's not the ability to use statistics, but it is a managerial approach to problem solving. It is a managerial approach to organizing your business. And so one of the key ideas of understanding stakeholders is this concept of voice of the customer, or VOC. And essentially in this situation, I got permission of my son, who's sitting here, to use him in this clip. And here you have me sort of essentially as the manager, and here our customer. And again, a customer can be, we could think about a customer as a stakeholder, and this person could be an employee, it could be an end user, it could be a third party that's assisting us. We have a difference of opinion of what he's holding, and that opinion obviously results in his overall, as you'll see in a moment, dissatisfaction.
Okay.
It's not chocolate chip, it's blueberry. Blueberry. Okay, you want to try it? Yummy? All right, and so
I guess that the customer was not very satisfied.
no, they weren't satisfied. That's for sure. And so in this situation, obviously my son thinking that he was holding a chocolate chip, and no matter how many times I told him as the manager and the person in charge what it is that he had and how he should be using or enjoying what he had in his hand, he insisted it was a chocolate chip. And the end result of this customer was, you could say, dissatisfaction sort of written all over his face. And again, when we are engaged in any Lean Six Sigma project, again, when we're engaged in any process improvement, this is not a solo activity. we are talking, as mentioned, a managerial approach, which also implies that it is a team-based activity, and the team needs to be, importantly, comprised of those who are engaged in the actual work itself. So it cannot come from top management telling other folks what to do. We need a collaborative approach. Any organization that engages and cares and wants to employ Lean Six Sigma ideas needs to think of it as a culture of Lean Six Sigma, a leadership that engages Lean Six Sigma, as well as an understanding of the tools and techniques to actually enact change. And so Myriam's going to get into our first example, which is a great personal household example for you to understand, specifically, primarily focused on the lean aspect of Lean Six Sigma.
Okay, then, you know, you might have experienced this situation when, you know, you have to share the bathroom with somebody, either your roommate, a spouse, anywhere, right? And sometimes it happens that you know, happens bottlenecks, you know, that will take more time for you to get ready, you know, to go to work, to go to a party, etc. Then that's the idea. No, you are sharing a bathroom, and how long is it going to take you? You know, because you are sharing. And what you see is our current state, right? This is the problem. Let's put it. No, the problem is not sharing the bathroom. The problem actually is, where do you put all these items in the bathroom, right? And as you can see, this is a very messy bathroom. You know, you can find, actually you cannot find many things that will help you to get ready very fast. You know, there is no towel in the shower, you cannot see where the toothpaste is, or even the toothbrush, well, maybe one, but not the other, etc. Or brushes. Then, and this, well, you know, this not only will create conflicts with your roommate or your spouse, but also it's going to take a long time to get ready. And that is one of the objectives, is how can you reduce the time to get ready in using the bathroom, right?
One of the things to keep in mind, and Myriam, if you could just jump back to the last slide.
Go ahead.
In some organizations, you know, and certainly, you know, a spouse might say, well, the solution is that we need 2 sinks. Right, we just need to just destroy what's currently here. You know, clearly, you know, we just need to get the resource and have 2 sinks, and that's going to solve our problem. Well, we know that the reality is that 2 sinks is just going to result in this situation of 2 messy sinks, number one. And number two, and more importantly, oftentimes those resources don't exist, right? If we could all have, you know, 2 sinks in all the bathrooms that we have, that we share, or we could have, you know, everything ideally that we want, that would be terrific. But resources are limited, and so one of the things we have to keep in mind, it's not about we just need to throw lots more resources to solve this problem, but again, through a lean approach, we need to figure out ways in which, given what we currently have at hand, how can we make this process better? And I also want to just mention that this example comes from MBA students who come to Mercer on an annual basis from FOM Hochschule, top-notch school in Germany. So for that group who might be on watching this, thank you for this example. Sorry, Myriam, back.
No, that's okay. That's great. Thank you. And then let's start using our DMAIC method in order to start thinking about this problem. And no, having another sink is not a solution, or even having another bathroom is not a solution, right? This is quick wins. No? Then, first of all, they need to define the problem in detail, right? Then what is the real problem, right? Then is maybe the situation, no? What is the situation? Then measure and analyze the current state. First, Gemba walk. Gemba walk is a term that means just simply go and identify, see what the current situation is. Just look around, you know, start thinking about what the problems, what the shortcomings, what the bottlenecks are, you know, and also you check the usability check of the 5S. And what are the 5 S's, Eric?
Now I'm trying to remember all of them. Includes sorting, putting in order, shining, sustaining, and that's it. Yeah, sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry for putting on the spot, but as you can see, it's is just identifying with your gemba walk, and that is a term. That's how it comes from Japanese, right? And Eric has explained the history of Lean Six Sigma. No surprise on that. And it's just identified, you know, what the problems are in this current state, no? And also by doing that, you start gathering information. Right? Then what is the solution? What it could be the improvement in the current state? No? What kind of experiment could you set up in order to improve the situation, and how would you implement it, right? And that's and as you can see, there is we have a timetable. We have to set up dates in order to keep up with the whole process, no? And after we set up our experiment, our pilot, then we have to control, are we following up the rules that we have established, right? That's the idea. And what was the pilot that these MBAs were thinking? Well, first of all, they were looking at the Gemba walk, what they were doing in the bathroom. Well, first was the shower. You know, that's what you do. You brush your teeth, you put makeup on, you put hair ready, and then you get ready. Then if you wanted to take a shower, as you can see, the first problem was you were missing the towel, right? That's a big problem. And then after that, you know, where was the toothpaste? You might have found the toothbrush, but where was the toothpaste? You know, and the main problem in this Gemba walk was that items were not in their places, right? It was all messy. And then what is the future state? The idea, you know, that will be is that, you know, things will be in order, in their place, in a place that everybody will know it is there. Then in this case, we have two roommates, Karen and Maria, and then they label, right? They label initially where, and they agree. They have to talk about it, and they have to agree in this order, because if one does it, you know, unilaterally, it might not mean anything for Maria, right? Then in that sense, there has to be a buy-in, a willingness to, in an agreement, in order to organize all these items in the bathroom in order to find in a place, and to, you know, and maybe at the beginning to put a label on it in order to think, okay, where should I be putting there, right? Then that was the idea, and voila, this is how the bathroom should be looking like. That's where you are going to find items, and therefore you will be able to get ready on time for classes, for parties, etc. Right? And that was the idea. Now, what were the ideas to test? You know, the first idea was to define a place for each item. Then what that meant that it was going to be easy to find, and it really worked. In that sense, it was very helpful. They reduced the time. Also, by having, by seeing, you know, all the order of these items, they were able to see what was, you know, what item was running low, right? And they were able to replenish, you know, faster. And in this case, they were not going to be running to the store at the last minute, etc. And it was going to be a quicker restocking. No, and once again, it's a reduction in the amount of time that they might be using. Now, many times they were testing also the combination of the steps, you know, how can they put all together, thinking that they could save time. That didn't work, right? And in that sense, they not only they see one idea, but they were trying to see several ideas and test them and checking with the time that they were using. And then what were the results and quick wins in this experiment? Well, in the shower, they were saving 120 seconds by having the towel. In brushing their teeth, they were saving 30 seconds by having the toothpaste. And in the makeup and hair was 600 seconds. You know, they were saving that time. Then in that sense, they were saving 12.5 minutes. You know, but remember, you might think, oh, it's 12 minutes. it's two roommates. It's almost 25 minutes for them to get out if they are driving together to class, for example. Or if you find it for times 5 is almost an hour in a week, or in a month. And then those minutes can be used for, for having breakfast, your coffee, or any other, or even getting earlier to class, to be ready and without stress. Then
and of course,
those,
anyone who has kids and is trying to get ready in the morning knows that 12.5 minutes is like a lifetime. So
thank you. Yes, definitely. Therefore, they become more effective. And I'm pretty sure less stress also for there. But that is our application for an everyday life. It's a simple application of Lean Six Sigma tools or better, as Eric said, not tools, is this Lean Six Sigma set of mindset in order to solve problems, right? And not enormous problems, simple problems, because with that, you will be able to solve more complicated ones. But let's see.
Sorry, Myriam, just to pick up, even in that example we just gave, we're not necessarily suggesting that you should absolutely go and put tape on your sink to put everything here. That's what these individuals did. That's based on their budget, their resources, based on the availability of what they currently had. But maybe you want to organize your medicine cabinet, to make sure that one shelf you have all the stuff that you need to get ready in the morning, a different shelf all the stuff that you need in order to have for your evening routine. If you want not everyone to see it, but you want it for yourself, have a variation. Let's say you don't have a medicine cabinet, you can put everything. Maybe you get cute little dishes. Each dish is designated for a specific item, and if that item is not on that dish, then you're either low or something's missing, etc. So again, just taking that very simple example, it could be used and applied for people in different ways, depending on your needs, your aesthetic purposes, whatever your voice or the voice of the customer is in that particular situation.
Correct. In the office, in the kitchen, everywhere, even with toys, that's definitely true. But we also have application of an example of an application for businesses, okay? And and in this case, just in case we have, and I don't know, you might remember or you might be aware, now a long time ago, people were using carbon copies, okay? And those are the ones that are in your right upper corner. And what you did was you were writing on the white and it was going to have a copy on the yellow and pink, okay, page. And what the carbon copies were doing, and in this case, is inspection forms. You were using these carbon copies to tell how the truck of this company was doing, and if it needed some repair, if that there was some sound, there was some problem with the truck, they were filling out these forms, right? And it was for, then at the same time when you were doing it, you were having 3 copies, right? The white form was going to the maintenance shop, the yellow copy was going to the supervisor, and the pink copy was going to the truck. Now, the big question is, where are those copies? Because it wasn't really messy. As you can see, the yellow copies of the supervisor were piling up, right? The white copies were under some unidentified object, in the maintenance shop, as well as in boxes, that there could be pink copies. Can you imagine finding the records in a room with boxes, right? Then what is that, and that really created delays in the maintenance of trucks, that it was very important for this company.
And again,
then, go ahead.
Myriam, we know that even if your company doesn't use sort of triplicate copies like this, many small businesses do. So Myriam knows that I do a lot of research on family businesses and small businesses, and I've been to lots of small businesses that do tons of stuff by hand still. This is how they've done it for the past 30 years. They don't change for a reason, and so you'll see this. But you'll also see this, of course, in very large institutions as well. So I always unfortunately joke about the idea that when we go to the doctor, right, or the dentist even, we typically have to fill out something online before we go to our appointment. We get to our appointment, we tell the receptionist we're here, they give us something else to fill out, which is often similar or redundant information to something we've already done. Then we go into the room itself to wait, and a nurse or typically comes in, or an MA, they take additional information from us and write it down, and then the doctor comes in and asks for more, right? So we have this redundancy in our healthcare system, right? In everywhere in you know, in the healthcare system and in many other organizations, right? So obviously, you know, within healthcare, there's other things that come up that make it somewhat difficult to reduce, but I've been to doctors' offices that do a great job of reducing it as well. Others not so much. So I think that this is a great example, Myriam. I'm glad you picked it because it's so applicable to small, large businesses and to lots of different organizations as well. This company is an energy company, but they used trucks as part of their services, and so that's where this is coming from.
Thank you, Eric. And this is the process flow of these, where these copies are going, right? And please, as you can see, each copy has this, for example, here you have your pink copy, and then you have your yellow copy, and then you have your white copy. And now, as you can see, the flow of each copy is going through different stages and even intertwined, no? And it's quite complex. And there is a lot of handling hand to hand, right? And really, many times when they were trying to trace the maintenance records of a truck, they was not found. No? Anything else, Eric, that you would like to add to this?
To your point, you know, the red dotted arrow, to your point, speaks to the manual handling of this paperwork. And again, you know, as part of working with this team on this process, they lost a lot of these sheets, right? Because when you are dealing on a daily basis with, you know, making sure that your trucks are are ready to use, or if service is needed, and you know, you're handing, you know, this paper to one person to another, you're going inside of a building, outside of a building, it's going on a truck that's moving all around the state. Things are getting lost. So, you know, one of the things from developing even a process map like this and looking at, you know, manual movement, is there a way, again, when we're trying to identify waste, is there a way to reduce or to cut out as much of that movement as possible of those sheets, again, because we also don't want to wind up losing sheets, which is going to result in us perhaps missing an item that needs to be repaired in a truck, or missing the documentation that we might need in case that truck gets in an accident and someone get hurt. So this was a critical thing. And again, it doesn't necessarily seem like an important thing to pick out. We're like, well, we have lots of copies. That's great. You know, this is a way to solve the problem of making sure that we don't lose anything. But in fact, the movement of them all around resulted in great confusion and loss and missed opportunities along the way.
Exactly, and especially, you know, in this case, what we are going to see here, for example, is a fishbone diagram. Please, Eric, could you explain what is a fishbone diagram?
Sure. So in the previous slide, that process flow chart, again, that chart is typically created through a Gemba walk. So again, as Myriam mentioned, a Gemba walk is one of the sort of the cornerstone tools of Lean Six Sigma. And Gemba, again, taken from the Japanese, means the actual place. So first and foremost, we need to see what is going on with these different sheets of paper. How are they being passed around? And the way to do that is not to ask people. Okay, do not ask people, because people have narrow perception. We all live in our small worlds of what we do day in, day out. People who actually developed that process flowchart had to go around and follow where those sheets went. Okay, and so after following where all those sheets went, and as we'll see in a little bit, recording how long it took for all those sheets to get to different places, they then were able to generate that flow chart you saw on the last page. Now the next tool, this is called a fishbone diagram. It's also called a cause and effect diagram, where all the potential causes for the issue at hand are part of the bones of the fish, and the effect is that outcome is the head of the fish. It's also referred to as an Ishikawa diagram, referencing the individual that developed this tool itself. And essentially, we have a variety of potential causes that could result in a specific event. In this situation, we have a question that needs to be asked. But one of the traditional ways to develop a cause and effect diagram is to look at what's sort of called the 5 M's and an E, right? So we look at methods, machines, manpower or people, materials and measurements, and then finally environment. And not every fishbone diagram employs all of these. You're also not beholden to use all of these generic titlings, but that's often what we use. And so here you see manpower, method, measurements, material, and environment. Now within each of those general categories, we then identify, okay, what are the more specific things within each of these general categories that's going to lead us to, for example, the cause could be to losing the paperwork or causing things to take longer than they should for our men and women to get on their trucks and to go about the business that they need to do for the day. And so you're really digging into each of these topics, and some cause and effect diagrams we see with, you know, dozens of different little bones attached to each of these broad themes. Some of the themes become more obvious. The other tool that's used in conjunction with the fishbone diagram is something called 5 Whys. 5 Whys is something that you might have heard in the past. Again, a simple lean tool. Basically, you're just trying to get at the root cause of something by asking the question why 5 times, okay? So if we think that we have a potential manpower issue, why do we have a manpower issue? Do we not have enough people? Why don't we have enough people? And then we keep digging down by asking why 5 times to get at what we believe to be the underlying reason. And then that is the thing that we need to tackle, because that's the thing that's really resulting in the cause. And so again, a very sort of simple, a simple tool, but has a lot of real power in terms of its potential implication when we move from our current state to thinking about what our future state is and to developing those different experiments to look to make those improvements.
And as you can see, once again, this is part of the Gemba walk. And please, here they haven't even found a problem with the truck. It's just simply, you know, this is a simple example of this, the flow of this paperwork, no? And in terms of the flow of this paperwork takes in total 16 minutes, right? That goes, and especially when there is no problem at all, okay? There is no request for, you know, a repair or anything like that. But it's how long does this paper, you know, these copies go and take around, right? And that's another way to collect information. Have you realized that through what Eric has been explaining, you know, asking the 5 whys, looking at the fishbone, looking at the Gemba walk, and even taking time, you know, of each step, we are collecting information, either qualitative or quantitative in this case. Remember, 16 minutes, okay, to go from one place to another. Therefore, what this group, what they decided was, hey, let's make a form that will go into your tablet, okay? Let's have with all the questions, and that tablet is being used by the driver, as well as it will connect with the computer of everybody involved in the process, right? Then everybody has an access either to the tablet or to the computer, and that form can be shared with, all the information of that form can be shared with everybody. Then what we are having is every time that a driver is filling out their form in their tablet, they are creating a database. You know, if then what we are having is a flow that is simpler, right? Is simpler. There is no, the risk of losing copies have declined tremendously. The communication is very quickly instantaneous, you know, and people can start tracking repair requests. Right? Any other comments about the future state?
Just that you'll also see that the manual handing has reduced to hardly anything, right? So when we are putting something on as an electronic document, we're able to, you know, reduce any paperwork, you know, tremendously. And again, keep in mind, you know, that this is not a huge technological feat, right? This is just a document that they, you know, just put into their internal software database, right? It was not difficult to do at all. but it just wasn't done before, right? Because there was no initiative. No one spoke with the men and women who are the drivers and the technicians of these trucks to ask them, like, what would make this easier? It just wasn't asked, right? And other managers were like, didn't think to do it. People who were filing the paperwork would say, well, this is just what we've always done, right? So by just engaging, having those conversations, asking what would make things quicker, what would make things more efficient, what would reduce errors in the process, then we're able to think about solutions to sometimes problems that we didn't realize we had. But again, this is one way in which we can reduce variation, reduce loss, and reduce lots of different types of waste. And so the side-by-side, I think, is great. Looking at the old process, which, you know, without knowing what any of these different icons mean, it just looks like a freaking mess, right? It just looks like a mess of what's going on here for something that's very simple and only a tiny, 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 tiny little piece of what these you know, people do on a daily basis for their work at this company, but we reduced it and made it so much cleaner with that new process map you see on the right side. And there's some other quick wins in addition to the efficiency and overall time savings that Myriam's going to get to.
Yes. Do you remember that we were looking at just no request, you know, how the process of this paperwork going through, and it was taking 16 minutes and 6 seconds. Well, now with putting the information on the form and communicating, it's just taking 8 minutes and some seconds. And this new process reduces work time by 47%. Of course, you might think, well, it's only, you know, 8 minutes that are we reducing, but can you imagine 8 minutes for the time, you know, for how many forms that they need to fill out during for each hour in the week, you know, the free time that these drivers are having, you know, in order to being able to do other things more efficiently as well. Not only that, but we are reducing the risk of losing tracks, right? To keep records. And we are forming a database that they can be used for future decisions. And just simply, is it time to buy a new truck or not?
Yeah, and I think that in addition to making these sorts of changes, we are able to recognize ways in which we can use a new process, use the new information, in this case, use the electronically collected information to determine ways in which we can use the data for other efficiencies, as well as to better control the process moving forward. So that's the other little piece I wanted to add. So,
No.
But that's the end of this example, and we just want to let everyone know that this is the sorts of things that we do in our yellow belt certifications that we offer. Some specifics, just to give you all a little information about what this certification entails. The yellow belt, again, is the sort of the lower belt. Those who get yellow belt certification are those who typically assist green and black belts in their organizations. Although we have done training for yellow belts for people in organizations that don't yet have established Lean Six Sigma approaches, but lots of things that you could do, you know, to get other people on board in your organization to enact change, even at the very basic level. The Yellow Belt program is a 2 half-day training program. We do lots of exercises, not a whole lot of lectures. We engage in case studies. We actually have you all do some data collection. We are planning on offering this in October, both synchronously, virtually, as well as having a limited in-person options, engaged in making sure that we have a classroom available for, of course, lots of social distancing. Those who are interested in doing this virtually, we do plan on mailing you the exercise material in advance, so you have that material with you, so you can engage synchronously in the exercise and activities that we're engaged with. And as part of our certification process, we do require everyone to complete a qualifying exam that takes place at the end of the second half day. And on the next slide, you see some of the general tools and things that we cover in this sort of C-Self-Share or DMAIC methodology. Some of those things that we did here, we showed you sort of a value stream map. also do spaghetti diagrams, Pareto charts, Gemba walks, solving. We do things like 5S, point of view storage, engaging in 5 Whys Fishbone, and of course, through control and sharing, box and whiskers charts, run charts, and other sorts of problem solving techniques. And so just to give you an overview of some of the different tools and techniques you'll learn in a Yellow Belt certification program. And I think that that's all that Myriam and I have for you today. We do appreciate you listening to us, and we're open to any questions you might have or anything else that Jeff Wolf, the Director of Exec Ed at Mercer, has to tell us.
So thank you. We appreciate the time that you took today. And it's interesting. There's a couple of questions I'll get to in a minute here, but Eric, you had mentioned something about asking why 5 times. It makes me think of my kids. And when they were younger, they continued to ask why until they got the answer. Maybe it's that they didn't understand it. Maybe it's that they just didn't want to hear the answer, but they kept asking. And you're right. That is something we need to continue to do to not only understand, but get to the bottom understanding of it to say, this is why we're doing it. We're not just doing it because we've always done it that way. There's got to be a better way going on. So that certainly hit home. So there a couple of questions that came through. And Myriam, I'm going to direct this to you. You had mentioned something about statistics. One of the questions is, Six Sigma is about statistics. Do I need to learn statistics in order to be involved with either the yellow, the green, the black belt? It seems to this person, this is really important to you.
Not necessarily. It's what we are going to give you is precisely the training that you need. You know, yes, you are going to learn statistics concepts, but how to apply them and in an easy way, in a very friendly way. And actually, we have a fun activity to start realizing how you apply these concepts. But no, you don't need the statistics or formal statistical course in order to apply this. But it's just simply this desire of start gathering information, and there is information everywhere.
And I'm a qualitative person. I'm not a primary quantitative person. And I think the word statistics could frighten people. But statistics also just means like, what's the average, right? Or how many of something do I have, right? And so even in the examples that we showed you, doing those Gemba walks, collecting time measurements. If you have a cell phone and you could do a stopwatch, you could do the activities that a yellow and green belt a certified individual does in that data collection. And then some of the things that Myriam does and teaches you all with some of that basic data helps us understand what's going on in that process. But it's not that you need to learn any sort of advanced statistics, especially at the yellow belt and even at the green belt level. Once we get into a black belt level, then we need to engage more of the statistics. But the activities that anyone is going to engage in is, in terms of software use, is going to be some more or less, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Myriam, but some basic Excel type stuff, but nothing advanced at this level.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another question came through. I'm not really comfortable with change. And I can see that Lean Six Sigma embraces change. Will I be able to do this?
So I'll start. So a fundamental sort of underlying philosophy of Lean Six Sigma is continuous improvement. I do think it's important to recognize that continuous improvement doesn't necessarily mean a huge overhaul, right? It doesn't mean completely upending a process, right? You can think about a marriage, right? I'd always love, people in a relationship would always like to seek improvement, right? But if you're not happy in your relationship, it doesn't mean you need to find a new spouse, right? Now, you might need to, but in most situations, in many situations, you might not need to. You just need to make improvement on the current situation. So, typically what we're talking about is not an overhaul. We're not talking about vast improvement. We're talking about small iterative changes, small improvements along the way. So we have to recognize also that the improvements can greatly improve an overall process, its efficiency. What you saw in that last example Myriam gave in terms of the time savings, that directly translates into cost savings for the organization. And certainly, you know, most organizations are interested in figuring out ways in which they could use their talent better, figuring out ways in which they could have more efficient processes and reduce errors. And so therefore, I think most organizations are open to that sort of improvement. And certainly in your household or in your personal life, you'd be looking for ways of improvement as well. But again, we're not talking about overhauling systems or overhauling processes at all.
Yeah, and I would like to stress that this improvement comes with a self-realization. You know, I think the idea, the Gemba walk is going to take you to a place where is the person who would like to improve, right? That's, I think, is the self-realization. The results, all the information that you gather will make it in such a way that you want to do it, right? That's the idea. I think that's what I mean with the Lean Six Sigma mindset.
We have about 4 minutes left, and I want to respond to 2 quick questions that came up here. Number one, somebody had asked what the cost would be for the Yellow Belt course that we are looking at. We are going to be offering that course for $500 for that 8 hours of instruction. We will be offering also a discount for Mercer students. Then another question that came up was, will there be opportunities for green and black belt certification? The answer to that is yes. We're going to take this pretty much in order and start with the yellow belt to allow people who have started with that to be able to go on to the green belt and ultimately black belt if they want to. Those programs will probably come out within the first or second quarter of 2021. I have one question here, and it may be something that either of you may need to respond in an email to somebody or have that individual write you. But let me ask the question and see if you can get this done in a minute or two. This is from a Mercer MBA hopeful and financial professional. This individual is curious to know what softwares are used in the Lean Six Sigma process to draw the process maps. And number two, would you briefly go over the difference between master black belt, green belt, and yellow belt? You can do that in a minute or two, great. If not, we would make sure to send some information to you.
Okay, can I ask the first question and then Eric can do the second part? Is that okay?
Perfect. Yes.
We only use, you know, if you want to do all those drawings, PowerPoint, we provide all the icons that you need, right? It could be in PowerPoint or Word or Excel. That's it. And you don't need any other sophisticated software or anything like that. It's whatever you have in your office. That's it. Yep. Eric?
Yeah, and so in terms of any of the diagrams that we showed you, that was all it was. We generally believe that there's no need for you to learn or to use or to purchase any additional software. Even if you're using this in a large company, there's lots of software out there that you could use to make really pretty things. But you know, one thing we even recommend students to do, you could just draw this by hand, right? We're not looking for anyone to spend lots of time drawing the process map. The process map just gives us a visualization of things that we have to do for change, okay? In terms of the different types of belts, so master black belt, so different organizations have different sort of definitions of each of these, but generally master black belt is those who are considered sort of the top level, who've engaged in a variety of different projects over many years, and who often are those that are official in their organizations as the go-to person to establish any sort of Lean Six Sigma project changes. That's sort of the highest belt or attainment that you could have. Black belt is run below that. I'm a black belt certified. That's someone who generally leads projects as well as does often training in organizations or for other organizations. Green belt is also a belt in which people do initiate programs and can lead programs, often in conjunction with a black belt. And lean belt certified individuals are those that typically assist green and black belt leaders who are leading programs. Below that, sometimes people take a white belt. White belt is essentially just understanding terminology and very generalities. We generally at Mercer like to just start right in with the yellow belt because we do believe that it gives people enough tools where they could actually engage in projects, even more than just sort of providing support, but really using the tools so they could have an intimate knowledge of what Lean Six Sigma is about and providing important support.
Great, thank you. Well, look, I know we probably go on with more information. Our email addresses are there. Please, if you are interested in asking any more questions, please reach out to Dr. Quispe-Agnoli, reach out to Dr. Kushins, reach out to me. Be glad to help you. You can see that information there. We're excited about the program coming up in October. I also want to make you aware real briefly, we have additional webinars coming up next week. On Wednesday, also at noon, Supply Chains, The Perfect Storm with Dr. Carol Cagle. Go to our website, which is Mercer University School of Business website for our professional development webinar series. We also have a Women in Leadership webinar series coming up, 4 individual days. 2 of them are going to be in August, 2 are in September. We're also going to be hosting on campus October 22nd and 23rd for Women in Leadership. There's a lot going on. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. We apologize for going over, but I want to once again, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Myriam, for your time. And we wish you all well. Have a very safe day. Stay healthy, all of you. We appreciate it.